Hello there, kia ora. I was kind of surprised by a comment from our Deputy Prime Minister the other day when Anna Burns Francis was asking him about his Nazi comments that he made about the Labour Party and what Christopher Luxon said to him in the conversation that was basically, please don't do it again. This was the comment from the Deputy PM.
And then about then I realised, like so many New Zealanders, all the way to the top, he's been misinformed by you media people who think that your shill lefty bias message is going to triumph.
And it actually highlights a really fascinating couple of things. The first is what we call an ideological shift. You see, Winston Peters has always had a prickly relationship when it comes to the media. He really seems to enjoy that. But when he started off his political party, he was a much more centrist politician. And where he's now sitting on the ideological mapping is much more far right, bordering on fascism. And there's a lot of factors for that. That could include where the economy is moving, the way that other political parties have moved ideologically, and the incorporation of conspiracy theorists and cookers into his own political party who are already pushing those outright fascist belief systems. But that doesn't necessarily mean that his claim that the media is a bunch of woke left wing shills is wrong. The thing that makes him wrong about that is everything else. Because you see, the way that people identify whether or not media is left and right comes down to a couple of different factors. The one that's most often used is the one that's always wrong, and that's how I feel about things. And you'll see that a lot in Facebook comment sections, for example, on social media pages for mainstream media. A bunch of people who say things like, sure, I was standing on the same side as neo Nazis, but I'm not a neo Nazi, therefore, this is a centrist issue when talking about things like the cancellation of drag story time. They don't understand or see that their ideological shift has pushed them into that alt right fascistic area. But when you sit on the far right, everything that goes against you politically, you consider left. In reality, our media is still right leaning, and even though they are certainly enjoying themselves a lot more at holding this government to account, it doesn't mean that they're still not right leaning. It doesn't mean that they've shifted their ideological viewpoints to something that's left. And we can actually tell that through a couple of different ways. The way that we tell what a media's leaning is really comes down to what it is that they tell people. And the ideological differences are very similar to what you see in the political arena. If they're focusing on things that are sort of conservative talking points like big business or the justice system or crime activity, if they're dealing with individuals who are having individual responsibility issues, that's a very right leaning ideology. And when it's something on the left, it's more about collective responsibility, collective outcomes, and systemic issues that need to be corrected or that cause problems. If we take a look at our major news outlets from yesterday morning, for example, these are the headline pages for the Spin Off, the Herald, Stuff, One News, and News Hub. And if we have a look at what the stories are that are prominent in here that there are more of, you'll see that there's still a focus on individual responsibility, individual actions, and on talking points that tend to be more conservative around crime, justice, and the economy. That shows us that what we're looking at is media outlets that are still pushing right wing ideologies, but that this government, well, they make it so much easier to be held to account because of their actions, their beliefs, and what it is that they're doing to screw everybody over. It doesn't necessarily mean that our media bias is flipped or anything, it just means that it's a lot easier to deal with the ridiculousness of what's coming out of our government while still holding it up to what's essentially a right wing viewpoint in the mirror that media holds up to the rest of society. So when you see comment sections from Facebook pages that are complaining about how the media is left wing and woke, just remember those people are the frogs boiling in the pot and don't realize where they actually sit. But when you hear it from a politician, just realize that they are probably in the firing line from this media because their ideologies are not the ones that match what the media is putting out there, and the media's ideologies are still considered right leaning. That's really, really problematic, with the exception actually of the spin off, which was much more about, collective outcomes and social issues and systemic problems being fixed. Just goes to show you that we do have some left wing mainstream media, but we have a lot more right wing mainstream media out there still pushing their ideologies, which might be one of the reasons why so few people are really up in arms about this government yet. But give it time,